Have you ever felt as if someone was quietly pulling the strings of your life, influencing your choices, your emotions, even your decisions without you even realizing it? Maybe it was a boss who always knew how to push you into working harder, a partner who played on your emotions to get what they wanted, or even a so-called friend who always seemed to twist situations in their favor. Manipulation is not always loud or obvious. In fact, the most dangerous kind is silent, invisible, and almost impossible to detect until it's too late. And that's exactly why learning how to never be manipulated again is one of the most powerful skills you can develop in today's world. What you're about to discover is not just another self-help trick or motivational phrase. This is about understanding the timeless principles of dark psychology, revealed centuries ago by Niccolò Machiavelli, the master of power and strategy. His insights cut deep into human nature, exposing why people manipulate and how they succeed at controlling others. But here's the truth. Once you recognize these strategies, you can break free from them forever. You'll see through the illusions, resist the emotional traps, and reclaim control over your own mind. Think about it. How many times have you agreed to something you didn't truly want, simply because you felt pressured, flattered, or guilty? How often have you noticed later that a choice you made wasn't entirely your own, but the result of someone else's influence? You've probably experienced this more than once. We all have. And the unsettling reality is that manipulators are everywhere at work, in politics, in relationships, in social media. Their methods are subtle but incredibly effective because they know how to use fear, desire, and perception to bend others to their will. The good news is that you don't have to remain vulnerable. By studying Machiavelli's dark psychology, you gain a shield against manipulation. You start to recognize the hidden motives behind people's actions, the little tricks they use to control your reactions, and the ways they disguise their true intentions. Once you see these patterns clearly, they lose their power over you. Imagine what it would feel like to walk into any situation, whether it's a negotiation, a relationship, or even a casual conversation, armed with the knowledge that no one can secretly steer your choices again. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to learn may completely change the way you see the world and the people around you. And it all begins with understanding the first Machiavellian principle that exposes the psychology of manipulation. And maybe as you hear this, certain memories are already coming to mind, moments when you realize too late that someone had been guiding your decisions for their own benefit. If that resonates with you, I'd love to hear your story. Share in the comments what stood out to you most so far, or even a time when you felt manipulated without noticing until afterward. Your voice matters here because the more experiences we bring together, the clearer the picture becomes for everyone watching. If this kind of content speaks to you, take a moment to like this video. It may seem like a small action, but it tells me directly that this message is valuable to you. And when you do that, YouTube recognizes it too. It helps push this message to more people who might need it right now, people who might still be blind to the hidden forces shaping their lives. And if you're new here and want to keep exploring these powerful lessons from thinkers like Machiavelli and Jung, don't just watch once and disappear. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you can stay with us on this journey. This channel grows because of you, and every comment, every like, every subscription is what allows me to keep bringing these ideas to life. Think of it as building a community of minds who refuse to be controlled, who are choosing to wake up together. Because the truth is, we're only scratching the surface of how deep manipulation can go. And the real power begins when you start recognizing the exact strategies that Machiavelli revealed centuries ago. Most people have heard the name Machiavelli, and immediately they think of schemes, manipulation, or the infamous phrase, "the ends justify the means." But that image is only the surface, a shadow of who he really was. Niccolò Machiavelli was not just a writer or a political thinker locked away in an ivory tower. He was a man who lived in the turbulent heart of Renaissance Italy, a time of endless wars, fragile alliances, and power struggles that could change the fate of entire cities overnight. Imagine Florence in the early 1500s. Behind the beauty of art and architecture were ruthless games of influence, betrayal, and ambition. Machiavelli was not an outsider. He was in the very middle of those dangerous currents, observing and recording how people truly behave when power is on the line. He served as a diplomat, dealing face-to-face with kings, popes, and military leaders, always watching carefully how they spoke, how they moved, and how they manipulated others. He was forced into exile, accused of conspiracies, even tortured, and from this brutal experience came his most famous insights. This is why his words still cut through the centuries. They were not abstract theories, they were forged in the fire of real human conflict. Machiavelli understood the hidden mechanics of influence, what today we might call dark psychology. He saw that behind polite words, behind appearances of loyalty or kindness, there was often a hidden agenda. And what fascinated him was not just exposing that truth, but teaching how someone could navigate it, resist it, and even use it to their advantage. When you realize this, his work stops looking like a cold manual for manipulation and begins to feel like a mirror showing the raw essence of human behavior. It is less about creating monsters and more about surviving in a world where monsters already exist. And that's why his lessons matter so much today, because the same forces he described, the hunger for control, the subtle games of perception, the pressure to conform, are still shaping our daily lives. Whether it's in politics, corporate boardrooms, or even the dynamics of personal relationships, the strategies he identified remain alive. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because once you start seeing how Machiavelli decoded the psychology of influence, you begin to uncover a hidden truth about why people manipulate and why so many fall into their traps without realizing it. This is the moment where understanding turns into transformation, where you see not just the surface of decisions, but the hidden forces behind them. Comment below. This makes sense to me. Dark psychology may sound like a modern buzzword, but at its core, it describes something that has always existed: the hidden forces behind human behavior, the unseen motivations that drive people to persuade, deceive, or control others. It is the study of what happens in the shadows of the mind, where fear, desire, and ambition quietly shape decisions. When we talk about manipulation, we are not only talking about dramatic mind games or obvious tricks. Often, it's as subtle as a carefully chosen word, a look that creates doubt, or a promise designed to stir hope. And this is why it's so powerful, because most of the time, you don't realize it's happening until the impact is already shaping your actions. Machiavelli, centuries before psychology had even been recognized as a field, was already mapping out these dynamics. He observed that human beings are rarely guided by reason alone. Instead, they respond to appearances, emotions, and incentives. He saw that leaders who understood this could gain loyalty even when they were not loved. They could inspire fear without ever raising their voice. They could create an image of strength so convincing that no one dared to test it. This is pure dark psychology, the use of perception to mold reality. Think about how often we make choices not because of facts, but because of how those facts are presented. A manipulator doesn't need to change reality. They only need to change how you see it. Machiavelli taught that perception is stronger than truth, and those who control perception hold true power. That insight is still relevant. Today, politicians craft messages designed to stir emotions more than logic. Corporations build brands that play on our desires for status or belonging. Even in personal relationships, people learn to push the right emotional buttons to get what they want. But understanding dark psychology is not about becoming paranoid. It's about awareness. When you recognize the methods, flattery that feeds your ego, fear that paralyzes your choices, guilt that makes you surrender your boundaries, you begin to see the invisible strings. Machiavelli wanted us to accept that human nature contains both light and shadow, and that ignoring the shadow leaves us vulnerable. His brilliance was in daring to speak the uncomfortable truth. People will manipulate if it benefits them, and pretending otherwise is a dangerous illusion. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because once you grasp how these hidden motives operate, you can begin to recognize the exact patterns manipulators use to pull others into their orbit, and that's where the real transformation begins. If dark psychology reveals the tools and strategies of manipulation, the next question we need to ask is, why do these tools work so well on us? The answer lies not only in the manipulator's skill, but in the weaknesses and blind spots that exist within every human being. We like to believe we are rational, independent thinkers, yet time and time again we fall into patterns that make us easy to influence. Understanding these vulnerabilities is the first step to breaking free. Fear is perhaps the most universal lever. From ancient rulers to modern governments, fear has been used to control masses of people with frightening efficiency. When fear takes hold, logic dissolves. People surrender freedoms, make irrational decisions, and cling to anyone who promises safety. Machiavelli recognized this centuries ago, writing that it is often better for a ruler to be feared than loved. He understood that fear bypasses reason and reaches directly into survival instincts. How many times in your own life have you agreed to something out of fear of loss, fear of rejection, or fear of conflict? Then there is the desire for approval. Human beings are wired to seek belonging. We want to be accepted, validated, seen as worthy. Manipulators know this, and they exploit it through flattery, praise, or even subtle signals of disapproval. A single compliment can soften your defenses, while a raised eyebrow can pressure you into compliance. Entire industries thrive on this need for approval, from advertising that tells you what will make you attractive, to social media platforms that trade in likes and validation. Ignorance of hidden agendas is another weakness that leaves us open to control. We often take words and actions at face value, assuming others operate with the same honesty we expect from ourselves. But as Machiavelli warned, appearances are rarely the whole truth. Those who hide their intentions can maneuver freely, while those who remain naive are the easiest to exploit. This doesn't mean becoming cynical about everyone you meet, but it does mean training yourself to ask, what might this person stand to gain from this situation? Reflect for a moment. Have you ever realized too late that fear, the need for approval, or simple trust led you into a choice that didn't serve you? Most of us have. That recognition is not a sign of weakness. It's a reminder that awareness must be sharpened, because only by acknowledging these vulnerabilities can we begin to close the doors manipulators use to enter our minds. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because when we uncover how Machiavelli turned these vulnerabilities into lessons, we begin to see the shields he offered against manipulation, and that is where strength truly begins. Machiavelli's first and perhaps most important shield against manipulation begins with a single, unsettling truth. People act out of self-interest. This idea may sound harsh, even cynical, but it is one of the most liberating realizations you can have. When you accept that most people are motivated by what benefits them first, not by some pure sense of fairness or morality, you stop being blindsided by behavior that once shocked or disappointed you. Suddenly, what once felt like betrayal looks more like human nature simply revealing itself. And in that moment, you gain clarity and power. Think about how often disappointment comes from expecting others to act in ways that go against their own self-interest. We expect loyalty, generosity, or honesty, even when those choices may cost someone more than they are willing to give. But Machiavelli reminds us that expecting people to sacrifice their advantage for your sake is naive. Instead, anticipate that self-interest will be the guiding force behind most decisions. By doing so, you transform disappointment into foresight. This doesn't mean living with distrust or closing yourself off. It means learning to see the patterns clearly. A colleague may offer help not just out of kindness, but because it strengthens their position. A leader may speak about justice, not solely out of conviction, but because it increases their popularity. Even in close relationships, affection can sometimes be tied to needs, comfort, or security. When you recognize these layers, you stop taking things at face value and start reading between the lines. That awareness makes manipulation far less effective. Machiavelli saw this truth in the courts of Renaissance Italy, where promises were broken as easily as they were made, and alliances dissolved the moment they no longer served one side. To him, this wasn't a cause for despair, it was a strategy for survival. If you understand that people are guided by self-interest, you can predict their moves, prepare your defenses, and even align your interests with theirs to avoid conflict. In modern life, the same principle applies. Businesses appeal to your desires not because they care deeply about your happiness, but because it serves their profits. Politicians frame their policies not only for the public good, but for their own re-election. Recognizing this doesn't make you bitter, it makes you realistic. And when you become realistic, you become harder to fool. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because once you begin to see how perception itself can be crafted and controlled, you'll understand why Machiavelli believed appearances often matter more than reality, and how that insight can protect you from the illusions that manipulators create. Perception, Machiavelli understood, often outweighs reality itself. What people believe to be true can shape events more powerfully than what is actually true. This is one of the most dangerous, yet empowering, lessons in dark psychology. If you control the way something appears, you can influence how people respond, regardless of the underlying facts. And this is precisely why manipulators are so effective. They know that appearances can blind us, distract us, and lead us away from truth. Think about how often perception drives decisions in everyday life. A polished resume can make someone seem more competent than they truly are. A confident tone of voice can persuade others even when the content of the message is weak. A leader who appears strong in public can maintain authority, even if behind closed doors they are uncertain or insecure. In each of these cases, the perception of strength, skill, or authority becomes more important than the reality itself. Machiavelli recognized this centuries ago, observing that rulers who carefully crafted their image could hold on to power even when their foundations were fragile. The danger is clear. When we accept appearances at face value, we leave ourselves open to manipulation. Advertisers show us lifestyles rather than products. Politicians display carefully staged images of empathy or toughness. Influencers online curate an illusion of success that hides the struggles behind the scenes. Each of these examples demonstrates how perception can create a convincing mask, and too often we fall for it. But here is where the shift in mental power begins. The moment you start questioning appearances, you weaken the manipulator's grip. Ask yourself, is what I'm seeing aligned with reality, or is it designed to influence how I feel? What incentive might someone have to present themselves in this specific way? By making this questioning a habit, you begin to look past the surface into the deeper truth. Machiavelli was blunt in his warning. People judge more by what they see than by what they cannot see. This means that most people are content to accept illusions as truth. But if you want to escape manipulation, you cannot afford to be most people. You must train yourself to resist the easy comfort of appearances and search for the hidden reality beneath. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because once we uncover the emotional triggers that give manipulators their strongest weapons, we begin to see how deeply they reach into our fears and desires to control our decisions. Emotions are the most direct pathways into the human mind, and manipulators know how to use them like skilled musicians playing an instrument. Flattery, guilt, and false urgency are not random tricks. They are emotional traps designed to bypass reason and trigger automatic reactions. When someone flatters you, they are feeding your ego, making you feel seen and valued. That rush of approval can cloud your judgment and make you more willing to comply with their requests. When someone uses guilt, they twist your natural sense of responsibility, making you feel that refusing them would mean you are cold, ungrateful, or selfish. And when someone creates false urgency, insisting that you must act now or lose everything, they rob you of the time you need to think clearly. Machiavelli understood that people who cannot control their emotions become slaves to those who can. He warned that those who seek power will always exploit the emotional weaknesses of others. By making you feel good, guilty, or afraid, they nudge you into decisions you might never have made if you had paused to reflect. His lesson is not to reject emotion altogether, but to recognize when it is being weaponized against you. Consider how advertising plays on these same principles. Limited time offers create urgency. Phrases like, "You deserve this," combine flattery with desire. Subtle messages that imply you are missing out stir anxiety and insecurity. These strategies are centuries old, only repackaged for modern audiences. In personal relationships, the tactics are equally effective. Someone might praise you lavishly before asking for a favor or remind you of past sacrifices to pressure you into compliance. Without awareness, these tactics slip beneath your defenses. But once you begin to see them, the spell is broken. You start to recognize that flattery is not always sincere, that guilt is not always justified, and that urgency is often manufactured. You reclaim the space to pause, breathe, and evaluate whether the decision truly serves you. Machiavelli's brilliance was in showing that those who master their own emotions gain freedom, while those who let emotions steer their choices remain vulnerable to manipulation. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because once you learn the strategy of detachment, the ability to step back and observe without reacting, you discover the shield that allows you to resist manipulation at its core. Detachment is one of the most underrated forms of power, and Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. He saw how those who reacted impulsively were easy prey for skilled manipulators, while those who could pause, observe, and hold back their emotions gained an advantage that few could challenge. Detachment does not mean apathy or indifference. It means creating enough space between stimulus and response to see the truth of what is happening. When you detach, you stop playing the manipulator's game. You no longer give them the emotional reactions they rely on to control you. Instead, you reclaim your clarity, and with it, your freedom to choose. Think about how manipulators operate. They provoke you to anger, knowing that an angry mind rarely makes wise decisions. They push you toward fear, aware that fear makes you cling to safety at any cost. They tempt you with flattery, counting on your eagerness to be validated. Every one of these tactics depends on your immediate reaction. If you slow down, if you step back mentally, and refuse to respond on autopilot, their power dissolves. The strings they use to control you snap the moment you stop dancing to their rhythm. Machiavelli believed that a leader or any person seeking to maintain control must be calm in the face of chaos. History is full of examples of people who lost everything because they reacted too quickly, too emotionally. Detachment gives you perspective. It allows you to ask, what is really going on here? What is this person's goal? What outcome am I being steered toward? By observing before responding, you turn manipulation into something visible, something you can analyze instead of blindly obeying. In our modern world, this strategy is even more critical. Social media thrives on emotional reactions. News cycles are designed to shock, anger, or scare you into constant engagement. Even in personal conflicts, manipulators thrive on pulling you into heated exchanges where clarity is lost. Practicing detachment in these situations is like stepping out of the storm and into stillness. You may not control what others do, but you control how you respond. That self-control is the foundation of resilience and authority. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because once you recognize that awareness itself can be turned into power, you'll see how Machiavelli's lessons transform from simple defense into a weapon that strengthens your presence in every interaction. Awareness is more than just a defensive tool. It is a form of power in its own right. Once you begin to recognize the patterns of manipulation, the flattery, the guilt trips, the false urgency, you no longer move through the world blindly. Instead, you walk with eyes open, and that awareness alone changes how people respond to you. Manipulators thrive on ignorance. They depend on your inability to see the strings they are pulling. But when you see those strings clearly, you not only cut them, you begin to project a quiet strength that others cannot ignore. Think about what happens when someone tries to pressure you with urgency, expecting you to panic and rush into a decision. If you calmly pause and say, "I'll take time to think about this," their tactic collapses. The urgency dissolves because it has no hold on you. Or imagine someone showering you with compliments before making a request. Instead of getting swept up in the praise, you smile, acknowledge it, but then weigh their words logically. That shift is subtle, but it communicates something powerful. You are not easy to sway. You are grounded. You are aware. Machiavelli understood this psychological edge. He knew that people respect strength, even if it's quiet and controlled. Awareness of manipulation gives you that strength. You don't need to confront manipulators aggressively. You only need to show, through your calm confidence, that their games do not work on you. This often disarms them more than direct resistance. A manipulator who realizes their tools are useless against you will often retreat, because the energy they must invest is no longer worth a return. The beauty of awareness is that it transforms your entire presence. You begin to carry yourself differently. Your decisions become more deliberate. Your voice holds more authority. People can sense that you are not easily fooled, and this perception alone protects you from many attempts to exploit your vulnerabilities. It is like having an invisible shield that moves with you, one built not from aggression, but from clarity and self-possession. Machiavelli's dark psychology teaches that the world will always contain manipulation, but it does not have to contain your submission to it. When you recognize the strategies and refuse to fall for them, you elevate yourself above the games others play. And once you reach that level, you don't just defend yourself, you start influencing the dynamic by showing others that you cannot be controlled. Now I want to go even deeper into this subject, because the final lesson Machiavelli left us with is perhaps the most empowering of all. That the true purpose of understanding manipulation is not just to survive it, but to master your own mind and build uncheckable strength from within. Machiavelli's lessons may sound cold at first, almost ruthless, but if you look closer, you see that his insights are not an invitation to manipulate others, they are a warning to protect yourself. His exploration of dark psychology was never about creating puppeteers. It was about exposing the hidden strings so you could cut yourself free from them. The truth is, manipulation will always exist. There will always be people who seek to control, deceive, or bend others to their will. But you do not have to live as their victim. Once you understand how these tactics work, you reclaim authority over your own choices. Think of how different life feels when you stop reacting out of fear, when you stop chasing approval, when urgency no longer pressures you into decisions you regret. Imagine walking into relationships, negotiations, or even casual conversations with the confidence that no one can secretly push you off balance. That is the gift of Machiavelli's wisdom, not to turn you into a schemer, but to make you immune to schemes. It's about building resilience, awareness, and the strength to stand firmly in who you are. This transformation is not just intellectual, it's emotional and spiritual as well. The moment you see through illusions, your mindset shifts. You realize that you don't have to carry the weight of false expectations, that you don't need to be trapped by someone else's agenda. You are free to think clearly, decide wisely, and move forward on your own terms. That clarity is power, and it is the kind of power that cannot easily be taken away. Machiavelli's dark psychology, when understood in this light, becomes a tool for empowerment. It sharpens your awareness, strengthens your mental defenses, and gives you the courage to live with more confidence. And perhaps most importantly, it reminds you that true power does not come from controlling others, it comes from mastering yourself. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever realized too late that you are being manipulated? Share your story in the comments because your experience might open someone else's eyes. And if you want more wisdom from minds like Machiavelli and Jung, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. If you've stayed with me all the way until now, it probably means this message resonated with you. That tells me you're someone who values awareness, strength, and the kind of wisdom that actually makes a difference in daily life. If that's true, then make sure you subscribe, because this is exactly the kind of content we dive into here, lessons that cut through the noise and give you tools you can use. And since you've been here until the very end, drop a quick comment saying, "I'm with you until the end." It's a simple way to let me know you made it here, and it creates a sense of connection with everyone else walking the same journey. If you felt that this conversation added value for you, go ahead and like the video. It's the easiest way to strengthen the bond we've built here and to show that this kind of message matters. And don't stop now. There's another video right here that goes even deeper and complements what we just explored. Click and continue with me there. I'll see you in the next one.